It's Amber, and today I will be walking you through how I would normally go about prototyping a scene in my game, Secret Life of Dorian Pink, where you save your boyfriend from the devil. And because this is going to be a very impromptu session, I'll probably have a lot of rambling and just trying to get errors to work. That might be helpful, but I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm gonna be working in Godot and Photoshop, I think. I'm not sure if I'm gonna bring in any other software, but we'll see as we go. And since this is more like a walkthrough of what my process is, if you have any questions on, or whoever is watching this, if you have any questions on some other things about Godot, I'll be more than happy to help out. So please reach out if you feel like it. And yeah, let's get started. So here I have a Godot project open. This display size is 1920 by 1080 resolution, and you would go and adjust that in the project settings here under display window, and you can do that here. And one cool tip is go down here to stretch, and I have my mode as 2D. I'm not entirely sure what the other ones are, but 2D works. And aspect, here you can choose the kind of ratio, flexibility of the size of your window. So I put it as keep because with keep, it means that no matter how much I resize it, it would stay in shape in the same ratio, which is this 1920 by 1080, but like the ratio of 16 and 9, 16 by 9. So yeah. So I'm gonna set up a new scene here. All these are my files that I have so far. I organized them like this: assets, fonts, minigames, blah blah blah. And the important ones are all here under scenes. So these are all gonna be scenes in the game. And how it's set up is you would have one scene, for example, let's go to scene 1. And then I'm going to open scene 2 as well. So basically, once you have the scene, and then here you can set up an area thing, which you can see this line here. That's my area 2D. So you can code it so that when the character enters this area, it changes to another scene. So it changes to scene 2. So characters are going to spawn here, walk around and stuff. And that's one way to do it. You can also have a bigger scene that extends from here so that the character doesn't change scenes. They just walk, and then maybe the camera can follow the character, and it's just going to be a very fluid walking process. And I'm not entirely sure the pros and cons of both. I just went with something that made more sense stylistically, but I'm pretty sure that you need some way to sort of load the scenes. Well, if you go with the latter option, which is to have a one big scene, you need some way to load the scenes when the character enters that scene, that particular part of the scene, because then if not, if the whole scene, the big scene, is loaded all the time, then it would probably take a lot of performance and CPU energy, or whatever that means. So yeah, so that's one thing to be sure to be considerate about. And with this one, with this separate scenes, you can have a scene loader as an auto load. And what an auto load means is like a singleton, like something that is loaded all the time, so you don't have to load them individually. It's like no matter what scene you're in, it's loaded and they're here under auto load. Normally it's a script file, which is like in GD script. But I think Godot now supports C#, so that's interesting. Yeah, so that's how I do it, but I don't like to use auto loads. It, for scene loaders at least, I don't think that's necessary, and I've done it before. It is very, very annoying. So, I just change scenes in the code of that particular scene, like here. This particular line changes scenes. Get tree, change scene. And then the path to that scene. And the path is cool because you can sort of like drag, and Godot puts the path in for you in string format. So I'm gonna start on making my scene right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a 2D scene. The scene that I'm gonna make is this one right here, which I have in Photoshop in different layers. Okay, so these are all on different layers. What I would do is anything that needs to have some sort of dimension. Well, I'm not sure how to explain this. So if you need to layer things on top of each other, so because behind this counter there's gonna be a pixel character, so it would make sense for me to save this counter as a separate PNG file. So everything I'm gonna save here is gonna become assets in the scene, and it's gonna be PNG because PNG supports transparency. And well, I'm gonna save this first. Vase. Okay, that's that. So I'm gonna alternate click on the eye icon to isolate this one and crop it and save it as PNG. I have a shortcut key set up to save it quicker, and I'm just going to do this process. You can fast forward if you like. I'm gonna save the the painting in a different file so that I can alternate between these and different times. So like maybe when the character goes into here, the painting would be this, and when they come out, the painting would change. But I'm not sure because I'm not, neither of these paintings are clicking with me at the moment. These are just for the prototyping process to sort of have like a placeholder. I'm gonna save the glow on a different file so that I can animate it so that it becomes transparent. Like I can adjust the opacity so that it looks like the glow is actually glowing at certain moments. So anything that you want to animate to, just put it on a different file. It's probably good practice to name your files properly, so you don't have to do this like me. Just turning things on and off to figure out which is which. Okay, so we have that. What I'm gonna do, and I always do this, is go to TinyPNG. They have well, my Wi-Fi may not be working, but I'm just gonna take the time to explain it a little bit while I turn on my data plan. With TinyPNG, you get this. It's sort of like a compressor for PNG files, and you compress it without losing quality of the files, unless you compress it too much. And you can donate or pay a small price for the Photoshop plugin, which is worth it, but I will do that next time. For now, I've mostly been just making it online. I'm just gonna bring everything into a designated folder so that it is, I can just compress everything in one go. Sprites. So once that's done, I can download all, and you can see that here it helps to lower the file sizes a lot, so definitely worth it. I'm going to go into my game folder here, and then go into assets. I'm going to create a new folder for what's this? Theater lobby. Okay, I forgot the file naming convention. Okay, so lowercase. I'm going to name this theater lobby, create, and yeah, that looks good. It downloads as a zip file. Oh no. Okay. So I'm gonna do some file organization. And let's go back here. I'm gonna name this theater lobby. And yeah, my my naming convention is crazy. I try to follow it, but not really. So that's probably not the best practice. So here, everything here is called the scene tree. It's sort of like Photoshop, where there's layers, and then certain layers, if you put certain layers on top of the other layer, it comes to the front, and then if you put it to the back, it goes to the back. Or you can adjust the Z index, which is here. And what the Z index is, if you're not aware, is sort of the higher the number here, the more forward that item is. And so every item is by default 0. So if here you put 1, then that item is in front of everything. So it's sort of akin to putting a Photoshop layer on the topmost order so that it's in front of everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a sprite. going to, well, we'll think about that later. I will do Command D or Control D, I think, on a Windows to duplicate everything. So I have tons of sprites to work with. I'm going to Assets, going to that folder that we have of all the assets, and drag the background here. Yeah, so this background is really big because when I create the Photoshop files, I put them normally 1 time larger than this one, than the default size I have for my game. So my game is 920 by 1080. I mean 1920 by 1080. I do 2560 by 1440 in Photoshop. So that's 1 time larger, but the ratio is still the same. And I am going to name this background. Before that, maybe we can Command A or Control A to add a new node. A new node is sort of like a layer in Photoshop. So we are going to have a color rect. It's like a colored rectangle. I'm going to place it in the back so it's behind everything. Make it black. Set the size to 1920 by 1080 and lock it so I can't move it around. So now you can see that's how it works. Oh, well, we'll think about it later. So I keep forgetting I'm doing like a streaming thing. So, next we're gonna pull in the counter, name it counter. And one tip I use is sometimes I take a screenshot of what I have here in the Photoshop file. I put it in as a sprite. I put in the screenshot as sprite, lower the opacity, and then I put the actual separate sprites on top. So I know where to place my things, but with this one it's fairly simple. So I'm not gonna do that. And then I delete the screenshot afterwards. So that's a tip. And then we have the painting. And the face, porcelain, antiques. And then finally the counter glow. I'm gonna place under the counter, so it's sort of like when you move the counter, the glow moves with it. So it's very similar to Photoshop in that sense. Great. So, oh no, the painting, I forgot to sort of isolate the glow, but we can do that afterwards since this is sort of like a prototype. So what I'm gonna do now is we have all these down. I'm gonna bring in the character, and the character is on a different scene. Let me save this scene first. Theater lobby. Yeah, look at my naming convention. This is so unnecessary. It's Pascal case and the underscore thing. But since we already have that, I don't want to change anything. Revolutionize my file folder. No, I'm just gonna use what I have here. So now we have that saved. We are going to bring in my my character, which I have done on a separate scene. So separate scenes are sort of like Photoshop smart objects, sort of. You can save them. For example, this scene is a scene. You can put them in another scene. And I'm going to show you how it works. So, for example, I have my player scene. I named it. I didn't name it player. I named it Dorian. That's our main character. And I am a little bit distracted right now because my dog is just walking around in the background. Here we have this character. As you can see, it is a scene, and scenes have this file extension, tscn. So basically with a scene you can have the code, which is here, the script here, and you can have a ton of other things under the scene, and you can plop it into another scene, and that's called instancing. So this link here, I will instance the character, and there he is. I'm just gonna bring him down here and resize him by going into transform in the inspector sidebar here and changing the scale. So that might be a little bit too small. Yep. Maybe 7.5. 7.5 has worked for my other scenes as well, so this is a good size. So I'm going to show you the problem with this right now. We can go to play scene here, which is to sort of like run the scene to test it out. So yeah, as you can see, you can't see the character because it's outside the bounds of this display that we have set, which is 1920 by 1080. And so I coded the player movement and all that in the character scene already separately. So I can walk around, and now you see that he can move around, but nothing really matters because it's just like a flat 2D space. And let's amend that right now. First, let's go to this character scene here and add a camera scene. So the camera is gonna follow the character around, and it's important that you set the current here to on so that the camera knows that it's currently active. And then you can set smoothing. This isn't that important. You can just do whatever you want. And you can set the limits as well. The limits are based on here. This ruler here. You can try to set the limits like on left side. If you want the camera to stop here, maximum, then you can put in, maybe in the left you can put in negative 500 pixels or whatever. And the camera is going to stop when it reaches this here. So let's try it out. Yeah. So you can follow the character, but the background is not great. And honestly, I think this is a little bit too big. Like the whole thing is a little bit too big, so I might just resize that. But let's solve the background problem first. Unlock the color rectangle. And just do that. So now you have this. Great. Now this is a little bit annoying because I should have thought of this before to resize it before I do all those kind of things, because now I have to resize it again manually. Because the thing about Godot is you can't select everything and resize everything in one go. You have to do them one by one. And the version of Godot that I'm using is Godot 3.3. And Godot 4.0 is set to release at some point soon. So it's pretty exciting thing in the Godot community. So that's interesting. It's really hyped up because people have high hopes for it, and it's supposed to be groundbreaking. So yeah, hope that works. Just gonna pull everything up. And resize the character here. That seems like a good size. And then the character can walk into the next room. So here, as you can see, you can have this. You can sort of enlarge this here, the colored rectangle in the background, to cover that part. Or you can set the camera limits, which is probably better, because then if not, your background will be infinitely large. I'm gonna set camera limits to 0 pixels from the left. And here, maybe 1750 in the bottom. 1920 on the right, and negative 100 on the top. So hopefully we can see how it works. Oops, I might have done something wrong there. But here you can see the right works, so it doesn't go on indefinitely. And the left works as well. It smooths and slows down and stops in the right constraints. Oh yeah, this is wrong. It should be top. Okay. So what we're gonna do now is to add collision shapes. What collision shapes are is because, as you can see, we can walk around on top of all these objects, and we're not supposed to be able to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a static body 2D. What it means is that this thing is going to be static, so you can't move it around, which is perfect for our objects. And every static body 2D needs a collision shape. I'm going to use collision polygon because that's easier for me to just draw the shapes instead of resizing a default shape, which is what you have with the collision shape. So for static body 2D, let's name this counter. Oops. It adds a 2 here because there's already a counter here. Which reminds me, before that, we should probably set up a Y-sort node. So go to add child node here, add a Y-sort node, and put anything that has to be layered in that node. So painting is going to be in the background no matter what, so we don't need to put it in the node. The background is going to be in the background no matter what. The counter, however, is probably needs to be layered. The face will be in the background no matter what, I think, because you can't walk behind it, it looks like. And Dorian, which is our character, is going to go in the Y-sort node. So anything in this Y-sort node is going to be sorted based on your Y position, which is up and down. And that's going to give us that layering automatically. And this is how it looks like. So once you go past a certain place, you're gonna, appear behind some objects. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, so the receptionist is gonna be behind here. So that's our Y-sort node. Now that the counter is in the Y-sort node, we can probably do this and get rid of the 2. So go to the select mode here and go to collision polygon and create a shape like that, I guess. You can, well, this isn't any rule or anything. You can try to create different shapes to cover different objects, but and just figure it out by trial and error if it works. But let me show you how it works. So now the character can't walk past this. Well, here it can because we did the collision shape a little bit off. I mean, wrongly. So that's what I mean. Just go by trial and error, and eventually you'll get a hang of it, of what kind of shapes you probably need. So yeah, now you can walk. And the thing is, the trick is that this character also needs a collision shape, and you can't see it now, but it's in its own scene, which I showed you before here. It has a collision shape, and it looks like this. So that's why you can't collide with it. So I think that's all we have for this one, like the basics of prototyping a scene. Oh, maybe I can cover one more thing, which is areas. So what we had just now is static body 2D, and area is a little bit similar. Go to add node, area 2D. It needs a collision shape as well. So let's do a collision polygon. My dog is crying and it's so distracting because it's trying to go out, but there's an important meeting outside and my mom's like, don't let him out. So he's stuck with me for now. And he's making a lot of noise. And so you have a simple collision polygon like that. And I will move Dorian inside so it's easier. So we can get right to it when we play the scene. And let's call this exit. So once you touch this part, you can exit outside. And with Area 2D, it won't stop you from colliding. So when you collide with an Area 2D, it won't stop you from going forward. It will just trigger something. And like a string of code or whatever. And that's how you do it, is you go to this Area 2D here, which I've named exit, go to node, and all these here are signals. I would suggest reading or watching some videos on the observer pattern to understand more about signals. I find that learning about programming patterns, and I'm not expert at them either, just to get a basic understanding about them, makes it easier for you to start programming other things and start putting things together. My dog is so noisy. I am so distracted. So go to exit, and then here under node, choose body entered, because this player here is a kinematic body 2D. So it's basically a body that moves, and it has this little symbol. That's a kinematic body 2D. So on body entered, just double click it. So it needs a script to attach to, and we don't want to attach to the main script of the player. We should attach to the scene root, which is this scene right here that encompasses all the other scenes. So I'm going to add a script. That looks about good. Create, delete everything here. And for now it extends node 2D. So it should extend whatever type of node this script is attached to. So again, go to body entered, connect, and now you have a line of code that you can do stuff in when a body enters the area here. So how about we do this? Get tree, which is to get the tree, the scene tree, and do change scene, and then you can put in the path of the scene that you want to change to. Let's say we want to change to scene 1, for example, and I have scene 1 here. So it looks like this. Well, no, not scene 1. There's some stuff in scene 1 that I feel like would create some bugs. So let's just say scene 15. So scene 15 looks like this. What we can do is go back to the script here, drag scene 15 here, and it's gonna automatically give you the node path. I mean the file path. And let's try this out. So the character has to collide with this here to enter the area, and then, yeah, you can't see the area here, but look, it works. So you just change scenes, and if you want to go up here and go back to the same place that we were before, then you would have to create the area 2D here in the scene as well and link it to our theater lobby. So I think that's all I have for you today. If you're watching this, and again, since this is a very sort of like a walkthrough, I don't cover a lot of basic stuff. I don't cover a lot of nuances and all that. I would suggest I have a playlist of tutorials that were really helpful for me, and I think I gave them to Basil. So yeah, and if you have any problems, just reach out, I guess. If I can help, I will try to. Honestly, I don't know if anything that I'm sharing with you here is more helpful than any of the tutorials that you can find online. So yeah, that's all I have for you today. Bye.